We're in the last grip of winter right now. Might even snow a couple inches this weekend. A lot of us are sick of it. But this weather we're having right now is a miracle for the people organizing this weekend's Nordic ski races at Mount Van Hovenberg. We talk with the guy who's under the gun right now to make a snowy race course for some of the best cross-country ski racers in the country at the tail end of snow season. That's today's story of the day.
Support for Story of the Day comes from Morja Wealth Management, serving the North Country for 3 generations. MorjaWM.com. Securities offered through Hightower Securities, LLC, member FINRA, SIPC. Hightower is an SEC-registered investment advisor. And Kinney Drugs, now offering specialized home medical equipment and supplies. Learn more at KinneyHomeCare.com.
Hey, I'm David Sommerstein. It's Tuesday, March 25th. First up, former state corrections officers who were terminated as a result of the wildcat strike that ended earlier this month will be eligible for hire in local government positions as of April 10th. Natalie Abruzzo reports for the New York Public News Network.
New York Homeland Security and Emergency Services Commissioner Jackie Bray issued letters to state and local officials last week about the lift on a temporary hiring ban. Individuals who participated in the unlawful strike and were let go were separated from the Department of Corrections and Community Supervision for cause because the strike went against state law and the workers also ignored a court order. Bray says the striking officers willfully disregarded their responsibility to protect the public, their colleagues, and those incarcerated. Terminated correction officers were reported to the Department of Criminal Justice Services to decertify their peace officer training certificate as a result of their conduct. Any municipality that hires a decertified peace officer will be responsible for the successful completion of their state-mandated basic training within 1 year of employment with the county. Commissioner Bray encouraged officials to put appropriate screening processes in place due to the reason for their termination. Letters were sent to leadership with the New York Conference of Mayors, New York Association of Towns, and the New York Association of Counties. Correction officers who participated in the illegal strike and were terminated are prohibited from New York State employment indefinitely. In Corning, Natalie Abruzzo for the New York Public News Network.
New York State has lost 1.7% of its population since the last census in 2020, according to new federal estimates. Catherine Wheeler reports on what those numbers look like in the North Country.
Over the past 4 years, the North Country's population has shrunk at a faster rate than New York State.
North Country was down 2.1% since 2020.
That's close to 9,000 fewer people, according to Leslie Reynolds. She's a research support specialist with Cornell University's Program on Applied Demographics. The new data comes from the U.S. Census Bureau's county population estimates. Most of the population loss in the North Country is due to people moving away. But there is a possible bright spot for one of our counties. Out of all of New York State, Franklin County had the highest percentage growth in the number of residents, and it happened just between 2022 and 2024.
The Franklin County gain of 1.8% in the past year was driven mostly by net domestic migration, so people moving in domestically, and that could be driven by the institutional group quarters or group quarters overall.
Group quarters are housing situations like dorms, apartments, and prisons. The census counts incarcerated people where they're imprisoned. Franklin County is home to 3 large state prisons, and in the past 2 years, the inmate population in that county rose by nearly 800 people. But overall, New York State's population went down. The number of state residents declined by 1.7% over 4 years. But in the last year, the population bumped back up by 0.7%. Reynolds says that's an important statistic to note.
That was relieving for us because we'd been seeing, especially during COVID years, a lot of people moving out of New York City, a lot of people moving out of the state. But we wanted to stick around and see, is it just this 1 year or will there be a rebound? So we are seeing that there has been a bit of a rebound.
In this estimate, the Census Bureau adjusted the way it counts people who move to the U.S. That's in response to the migrant crisis affecting border states, including New York. Reynolds says the numbers in the past weren't totally reflecting what communities were experiencing.
They were one of many other states, too, that noticed that there was kind of a gap between what they were actually seeing and what the estimates were saying.
Using new data, the Census Bureau found that all of New York's counties had a positive net migration rate, meaning more people are moving to New York than are leaving. And that's mostly attributed to people moving in from other countries. Reynolds says that could be important in New York State's future.
We've been losing more people than we're coming in for years. And so that this is kind of a shift in pattern, especially with all the stories of the past few years about the mass exodus and people concerned about losing population.
Reynolds says this new data may help clarify those concerns moving forward, and the population loss may be more of a temporary trend. Catherine Wheeler, North Country Public Radio.
Lake Placid is hosting its last big skiing event of the season this week. Some of the best American men and women cross-country skiers will be racing in the Super Tour Finals, starting tomorrow through Sunday. The race has been a super feat to prepare for, since warmer temperatures in recent weeks have melted a lot of the snowpack at lower elevations. Emily Russell spoke with Chris Cheney Seymour from the Olympic Regional Development Authority about how they've pulled off the event.
So we're talking on Monday afternoon. The first race is on Wednesday morning. What do the trails look like right now? Like, what does the whole area look like?
Well, the places where we have produced snow, it's quite good. Because we put down so much snow through the year and it was sort of happening continually, we built up a base where we're able to be losing snow. And as it's melting, maintaining enough snow so that we can hold the competition. But kind of the final step, once you've built out the snow on the trail, is creating a snow storage. So we then, towards the middle to the end of the season, in our final snowmaking efforts, we produce snow basically in a gigantic pile. And so we've actually, for the last week, have been taking some areas that were damaged or very icy. If there were any places where the ground was exposed, we've been going back to where we had that snow stored, and then we're moving it to those locations so that we can build up that base again, so that we have first-class conditions for the races.
We are seeing warmer winters with climate change. How is that factoring into ORDA's future planning for hosting major winter races like this one?
That question is really important, and it actually goes back a little bit to what the world needs. And so, one, snow reliability, even in a produced fashion, is becoming more and more complicated around the world. And so having international and national organizations being able to count on host venues and the local organizing committees to be able to have the snow needed is really one of the most important factors of a venue's viability. And there have been some studies of legacy Olympic venues and what the predicted climate models are in the coming years. And Lake Placid is listed in that as being one of the more ideal sites through the middle of this century of being able to continue hosting. And so a lot of the national and international federations are turning toward those locations, Lake Placid being one, Lillehammer, Norway being another, of places that, at least through the middle of the century, are viewed as having the stability to host those events. And so, it's in some ways an opportunity for this region as well.
Right. So looking ahead to the future, talk about the race that will happen next March and how you're using preparations now to kind of think through how to put on an even bigger ski event next March.
So Lake Placid and ORDA and Mount Van Hoevenberg are really excited to be hosting the 2026 cross-country skiing World Cup finals next year. It's a very prestigious event within sport, and it also is the World Cup coming back to Lake Placid. The last time there was a World Cup cross-country race at Mount Van Hoevenberg was in 1979. It was the test event for the Olympics in 1980. And in many ways, the Super Tour this year is our testing and proving event for the World Cup finals next year.
That was Chris Cheney-Seymour from WRDA speaking with Emily Russell. The Super Tour ski races start in Lake Placid tomorrow and run through Sunday. All the races are free and open to the public. We have more news all the time on our website, ncpr.org. Music today by Lost in Beijing of Keen and Ben Cato of Jay. I'm David Summerstein.